Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast in the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now on to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to the show. I sincerely appreciate you being here this week. And we have a topic that has been coming up quite a bit lately, it seems, in our group meetings and most definitely in private coaching sessions with several of my clients. And that is the topic of parental alienation. So what we're going to talk about this week are signs of parental alienation. And how we're going to do this is I'm going to break it down in three separate ways. The first, maybe four different parts. And first, we're going to talk about what is and is not parental alienation. Second part is we're going to talk about the behavior of the alienating parent and 10 signs or just 10 things that they do that will alienate the children. The next is we're going to talk about signs, and this one's really important. The children's behavior that you'll see and comments that you might hear from the children that might be a red flag for you to identify and pay attention to them potentially being alienated by another parent. And the last part is we're going to talk about the impacts of alienation on children and what it can mean for their adult life. Now, I do want to say in talking about this that it is incredibly important to pay attention to these signs, because what happens and what I've seen happen quite often here is if you get behind the eight ball and oftentimes particular people that really want to try to do things amicably and keep thinking, and maybe the dynamic in the relationship or in the marriage was that you thought, you could work things out, you could be amicable, that you could do, and you just do that and you're continuing to do that and you maybe overdo that. And you try to do that in divorce then too. And then what can potentially end up happening, particularly if you were somebody that is going to do something like this, and I would venture to say there's a high probability that they have a disordered personality if they're doing this and they are alienating a child against you, that it then becomes incredibly difficult to undo and unravel the impact of this and the alienation that is being experienced by the kids. And now there's two different things. There's parental alienation, which is the actions of the parent or one of the parents that is alienating a child against another parent. And then there's parental alienation syndrome. And what that is what the experience is of the children. Now, we're not going to get real specific into details here on all of this because it is a very, very deep and detailed topic. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some real specific signs, things to look out for, and then absolutely positively, if any of this is raising red flags for you, get in touch with myself. We can talk about this stuff, get a session going and see how you can get in front of this before it becomes a problem, or get in touch with an attorney that may know or understand parental alienation so that you can get in front of that depending on where you're at in your case, whether that's thinking about during or after the moment you think that there is something going on, any kind of parental alienation, then you absolutely positively have to do something about it. So let's jump in and first define what is parental alienation. Parental alienation is the act of one parent attempting to turn the child or children against the child's other parent through manipulation, criticism, or other negative behaviors without reasonable justification. The set of strategies used includes denying the child access, criticizing, encouraging disrespect, or forcing the child to cut ties with the other parent. An indoctrinated and controlled child feels unwarranted fear, hatred, and rejection toward the targeted parent and refuses contact with them. This is absolutely positively a form of child abuse. It is mental and emotional child abuse. Now, what is not parental alienation? Parental alienation is one parent's attempt to eradicate the child's relationship with the targeted parent without legitimate justification. However, a child rejecting a parent on reasonable grounds does not constitute alienation. Good reasons for the child's rejection include a history of domestic violence, child physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, neglect, mental disorders, or substance abuse. Rejection due to these reasons is an estrangement, not an alienation. So because of this distinction, accusations of parental alienation and abuse are prevalent in high conflict divorce cases in family court system. This is while one parent accuses the other of manipulating the child to reject them, the other side argues it is done in the best interest of the child, protecting them from the abusive parent. In a high conflict separation, a child is often dragged along in custody litigation and made to publicly denounce the rejected parent with accusations of abuse or abandonment, which causes them great distress. So let's talk about some signs of parental alienation. And no matter what the term is used or whatever it is recognized as a diagnosable disorder, parental alienation is associated with certain behavior patterns in the alienated parent and the alienated child. So let's talk first, like I said, about the alienated parent's behavior. And I'm going to talk about 10 of them. They will frequently engage in these 10 activities in attempting to alienate a child or children. The first one is general bad-mouthing. Now, that's general bad-mouthing of the other parent. They're going to say bad things about them. They'll bring stuff up. It's just stuff that they shouldn't be talking about or sharing with children. The second one is making the target parent appear dangerous or sick. So they're making comments about maybe a parent and what they're doing or how they're doing it. They're making comments about that might make the kids be fearful or think that their safety is in jeopardy, etc. Number 3, sharing the child custody case or child support issues with the child. This could be talking about the case, about what's going on in the case, maybe saying things that are, again, worrisome to a child, like you're not going to see your other parent, or something like that. Again, this is something. It's just twisted. Number 4 is accusing the targeted parent of not loving the child. So this would look like saying something around, well, your mom or your dad doesn't love you because they whatever. Number 5 is defaming the targeted parent in front of the authorities. So this would be doing something in front of somebody in a position of authority, maybe a teacher, or maybe a grandparent, or maybe another extended family. And actually, we're going to talk about that in the next one, or in front of a law enforcement officer, or somebody else. Number 6, restricting visitation or withholding contact information. And so this may be in...
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does, there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to Jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com, or give me a call directly at 720 255-1021.
It's pretty straightforward with the restricting visitation is, and I find this a lot in the temporary orders, or in the time where you're going through the divorce, where there's the restriction of visitation or withholding the ability to contact the kiddos. And if this one seems to me to be a major red flag, and one of the most obvious ones, and seemingly the one that I see the most, is some sort of restriction of visitation or withholding of being able to contact the kiddos. So if that is something that starts to happen, man, and even if you don't think it is going to the extent of alienation, get your attorney involved and get on top of this, because what you don't want is this to continue to happen after your divorce. So the restriction of visitation or withholding of contact from the other parent. Number 7 is sharing parental conflict and marriage issues with the child. Now, this is a little bit different than sharing the custody case or child support issues. That's the custody case or the child support issues is more around the parenting time, maybe the parenting plan, maybe the financial situation as far as how much is paid for child support, saying things like, I have no more money because I'm paying your mom, dad this much money, et cetera, stuff like that. Sharing parental conflict and marriage issues is a little bit different in the sense that they're talking about the relationship in and of itself and what the conflict is, and then talking in specific detail about that. Now, what this probably doesn't mean is saying something around or to the effect of, yeah, we're working on this, or we're having a disagreement about this, or something like that, and just being clear about maybe something that's going on, maybe recognizing that there is a conflict, which is okay to do. Getting into the details and sharing those intimate details is absolutely not okay. Number 8 is making negative remarks about the targeted parent's extended or new family. So this is bad mouthing. Maybe the grandparents. This is bad mouthing maybe aunts and uncles. This is bad mouthing any of the targeted parents' family members, or maybe maybe they're in a new relationship or are remarried and they have a new spouse with kids. Then it would be bad mouthing, or maybe not even to that extent. Maybe they're just in a new relationship, and the alienating parent is making disparaging or negative remarks about that person or that person's kids or their family, etc. Number 9 is intercepting calls and messages from the targeted parent. And so in intercepting calls and messages, that's not maybe just screening, which is probably a good thing to do with kids in general of messages, but that would be intercepting and deleting. That would be intercepting and in like we said, restricting their ability to contact or to reach out or to connect with them, cutting off lines of communication with them, maybe shutting down email addresses or blocking phone numbers on phones, et cetera, stuff like that. Number 10 is hiding the child or moving away. And some of you might be listening and going, well, really? How do they just do that? I can tell you from experience and working with folks that this happens. They pick a spouse or soon to be ex-spouse, or ex-spouse will pick up and leave with the kids. And so, as you can imagine, this is just terrifying to a parent, but it's also incredibly difficult to unravel once that person picks up and leaves. So again, this is if you think something like this is happening, or you feel like there's any kind of planning around this, get in front of this and make sure that it does not happen, because it's hard to unravel. And you'd think it would be really easy to be able to say, hey, they just took off and it's basically kidnapping, but I assure you, it is unfortunately not that easy in family law court to figure that out. So these are the 10 alienating behaviors of an alienating parent. So let's now talk about signs of the child's behavior. And so these are 8 symptoms of parental alienation syndrome commonly found in alienated children. Now, what I described in the beginning was the difference between parental alienation and parental alienation syndrome. So parental alienation we just talked about is these 10, and look, these aren't all inclusive, and I didn't obviously get into real specific detail other than just giving you a brief example of each of those parental alienation behaviors. But these next ones now are signs or symptoms of a child's behavior, which is parental alienation syndrome. So the first one is a campaign of denigration. The child may restlessly engage in name calling, criticizing, and deprecating the targeted parent. Now, what this comes from is because what they're doing is they are parroting or mimicking or just repeating what they're hearing from the alienating parent, but it's coming from the kid. So if all of a sudden your relationship with your kid includes them name calling, criticizing, or deprecating you, then you might say, what the heck is going on here? And then it's something to maybe have some conversations with your kid about. Again, we're not going to get into real specific details about what to do. I do have an earlier podcast if you're interested in talking about how to get in front of some of this stuff. So look that up. I think it's somewhere in the 90s or 100 or early 100s. In what I talked with an expert about parental alienation. We talked about how to get in front of some of these things. So these are just the signs of parental alienation and the signs of a child's behavior on parental alienation and then the impacts of them. But that previous podcast was more around how to get in front of and what to do about it once you identify those signs. So the next one is rationalizations. Rationalizing why the child rejects the parent is a common sign of parental alienation. When asked, the child gives weak, frivolous, or absurd rationalizations for their criticism. So like I said, if there is the campaign of denigration and you start to ask them, well, hey, why are we all of a sudden having these conversations? Why do you feel that it's appropriate for you to be acting this way or talking to me? And they give some generic rationalizations, weak, frivolous, absurd, just stuff that doesn't make sense. Now, sometimes, listen, maybe you haven't been acting appropriately. Maybe they have a reason to be estranged from you or are being feel like they're getting estranged from you because of whatever the relationship is. That is completely different, like I said earlier. So just have these conversations with your kiddos. If you start having these conversations, you start asking the questions. Asking questions is a great thing. Just continue to ask questions. But if you see that these are just general rationalizations, then that might be a red flag that they are being alienated. The next one is independent thinker belief. The child insists that their feelings are their own, not that of the alienating parent. So this might look like they're saying like, no, mom's not saying that. No, dad's not saying that. This is what I feel, or this is what I think. They got to do that. They've got to do that in order to take this to the extreme so that they can protect what they're doing. And look, here's what's happening here is they have to protect themselves. As a parent is alienating, and we're going to talk a little bit more about these in these last parts of the kids' behaviors, and then also the impacts of this and what happens to them once they are alienated. But what is happening essentially here is when one of the parents is alienating, they're having to protect themselves from that parent. So what they have to do is they have to take on some of this persona. They have to agree with the parent. Otherwise, this alienating parent makes their lives absolutely miserable. So it's a form of self-preservation, and it's a form of behavior modification that they're making themselves in order to survive what is a terrible environment that they're living in, with one parent alienating the other parent all of the time. So if they're not agreeing with that, or if they stand up for you, then what their life is going to be is just hellish, because that parent is going to make it absolutely miserable for them. So what they do is they take on some of this, and then you start to see what some of these behaviors. So that's why they're really clear red flags and signs for you to be able to see and identify when it starts happening. Next one is a lack of ambivalence. The child perceives the alienating parent as all good. So that's the alienating parent is all good because they're going to talk themselves up. And then the targeted parent as all bad. So what they'll do then is they'll support the preferred parent over the non-preferred parent, regardless of the issue. So if you start seeing your kiddo and they're always talking like whatever you're doing or whatever you're saying is bad, then that might be another red flag too, and a sign for you to pay attention to, because what they're getting in their mind then all of the time is, oh, so-and-so is bad. The alienated parent is bad. Oh, the alienating parent is good. And then they just continue to go down that line with everything all of the time. The next sign is absence of guilt over cruelty to the alienated parent. Now, this is really difficult. This is sad, and this is very heartbreaking for the alienated parent, because the child feels that the targeted parent is all bad. So therefore, they have no empathy for their treatment and appear to gloat about their hatred. So this is a kid that is just, and this would be really far down the line. So hopefully you have figured it out before it gets to this. But I do have clients that I have and are continuing to work with, where their children have already gotten to this point. So they are literally mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically abusive to the alienated parents, and they have no empathy about this, and there's no guilt about how they treat their the alienated parent poorly. So that is just a major red flag and sign, and hopefully you never get to that point. And some of these other ones you pick up on and get ahead of that before this happens. The next one is use of borrowed scenarios. The child uses the memories or opinions from the alienating parent as their own justification. So this is where you're going to get kiddos repeating stories that they have heard from the alienating parents. So they'll talk about things, and this is particularly true when you get young kids saying stuff like, "Oh, why did you charge up mommy's credit card? Why did you steal daddy's house? Why did you wreck the like stuff that they have no recollection of, no involvement in, nothing that would be something that has to do with being a child, and they're just continuing to talk about these memories and these opinions of what they have around this that have nothing to do with them. So that's called a use of borrowed scenarios. So they're borrowing the scenario from the alienating parent who is talking about this with them, and then they're using it as a justification of their own to hate on the alienated parent. Okay, now the last behavior, child behavior, is spreading animosity. So in severe cases, the children will actively spread animosity to the alienated parent's extended family. So that means they're gonna talk to grandparents, or maybe aunts or uncles, and they're going to spread animosity and say basically the things that the alienating parent is saying about the alienated parent. So that's, again, going to be these last three are really ones that are really, once you get into the severe cases of parental alienation. And again, the moment you think that you have, and this is one of those things that it's better to be overly concerned and sensitive about than waiting to get and falling behind the eight ball and getting behind the eight ball on this and trying to unwind this. If you have an inkling that there's parental alienation, get help, get the coaching help, get the legal help, get whatever help you need, therapeutic help, whatever it is, to start getting in front of this immediately. It is incredibly difficult to unravel. And so let's talk about then now what the impacts of parental alienation are on adult children. So, and you know, the negative psychological and social outcomes for adult children due to improper parenting include these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got eight more things. First one is lower self-esteem. It can be devastating for a child to hear that their parent hates them and will never love them. So we talked about one of the alienating parents' behaviors, and one of those is telling the child that the targeted parent does not love them. So what does that do? It's devastating to them to hear that, because they then believe it, and they think that the targeted parent will never love them. And an alienated parent, often making that assertion, can lead to low self-esteem and self-hatred in the child because naturally they feel like one of their parents doesn't love them. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Another one is major depressive order. Depressive episodes are linked to feelings of being unloved by alienated parents and separation from them at an early age. Another one is lower self-sufficiency. When alienated parents deny the child the freedom to make independent decisions, self-sufficiency is undermined. Thus, children lack the autonomy to develop a sense of self-reliance. So again, part of this is that the alienating parent is really trying to control the child and control the situation and control what they feel and what they think about the parent. And in doing so, this creates the dependency upon them. I mean, it's a really sick, twisted thing that's going on in their mind. Oftentimes, they don't even think or know that they're doing it. It's some kind of deficiency, mental, emotional disorder that they've got going on that they're perpetrating upon on the children, and then it leads to some of these impacts on the children. So it can lead to lower self-sufficiency. Another one is insecure attachment style. If you're familiar with different attachment styles, there's insecure, there's there's 3 or 4 of them, and I should know these off the top of my head because I read the book. But one of them is insecure attachment style, which we don't want, because what we want is, one of them is secure. Secure attachment style is that they feel comfortable and secure, that they're able to bond with the parents and be or anybody in a relationship and have a secure attachment style. Insecure and is a parent who alienates their child is often more concerned with their own needs than meeting the child's needs, and they cultivate dependency and manipulate the child psychologically to control them. Like I said, with the lower self-sufficiency. So what that creates then is a feeling of insecurity in the children or the child, because then they don't know that they are loved for unconditionally, for just who they are. And so that creates this insecure attachment that they're only loved conditionally. And so, as you can imagine, and then they feel no love from one of the parents because they've been alienated and told over and over again that one of their parents doesn't love them. So this creates a terrible insecure attachment style, which then in adult life, as you can imagine, translates to an insecure attachment style in their romantic relationships and other relationships in adult life. So that's another sign. The next one is drug and alcohol abuse. Adult children who suffer pain or loss as young children may turn to substance abuse as a way to escape their pain and loss. Again, this is self-medicating. It is a way to deal with the behaviors that we've adopted in order to survive our childhood, but then maybe in our adult life are no longer serving us. And that can be incredibly painful because we don't know what the source of that is, and it's very painful. So you end up self-medicating through drugs and alcohol, or maybe some other type of addiction too. It could be overworking, it could be over-exercising, it could be sex. I mean, it could be porn. Who knows what it is? I don't think this would just be limited to drug and alcohol abuse. Okay, the next one is lack of trust. This is a recurrent theme, and some adult children believe that no one else would love and commit to them if their own parents didn't love them enough to stay in their lives. Now, again, this is an extreme circumstance if a child has been alienated and then they just become disconnected with one of their parents because the alienating parent has been successful in targeting a parent and alienating the children for them. And then they feel a lack of trust because they feel abandonment from this parent. And then it just wreaks all kinds of problems and issues. The next one is alienation from their own children. And so this is tragedies repeating themselves. Many adult children have destructive patterns that lead to family breakdown, a poor parent-child relationship, and alienation from their own children. So there's this thing called generational curse. It's a more of a religious statement, but it's rooted in the fact that these relational patterns will repeat themselves. So if you have learned this relational pattern in your childhood, and then you begin to repeat it in your adult life, then what happens when you have kids is that then gets taught to them, and then it just becomes a generational curse that goes on and on and on until, and I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, you are the parents that is looking to figure out a way to end this in your generation so that this does not continue on and on and on. And then the last one, which we know because you're either contemplating going through or have been through a divorce, is that this group has a higher divorce rate than the national average. Adult children tend to choose life partners remarkably similar to their alienating parents. Again, this is because we've had these adaptive behaviors in our childhood. We get used to them. We understand and feel comfortable in that relational dynamic. And then we choose these partners because these partners put their own needs first. They lacked empathy for others and sought excessive control over them, eventually leading to divorce. Because we know if you've had a relationship like this, that it just does not work long term, and it's unhealthy and it's abusive, and it's definitely something that we do not want to stay in. So those are signs of parental alienation. Again, we talked about the difference between parental alienation and parental alienation syndrome, and talked about the alienating parent's behavior, the child's behavior, and the impacts on adult children of parental alienation. Again, this is not comprehensive by any means, because this is such a complicated, complex, intense topic, and it has huge ramifications on your relationship with your children. So I can't not emphasize enough about getting in front of this. If you even have just a thought that that your ex or soon to be ex is alienating one or more of your children. So again, get in touch with attorneys. But here's the thing: attorneys don't always know everything about all of the parental alienation. The courts hate the word parental alienation. So you've got to have an attorney that knows how to deal with this in court and how to work around it, how to find experts that can be third parties that can help with this. A coach, I would say a coach would help immensely with this, because what a coach is going to do that an attorney is not going to do is help you to strategize and mitigate this in everyday life. So a good divorce coach is going to help you to strategize everyday scenarios, go through ways in which you can communicate with your children, communicate with your soon-to-be ex or your ex, document what you need to document, communicate appropriately with your attorney, and also find potentially third-party advocates that are going to help you in this process in determining and proving that there is parental alienation. So if this resonates with you, get in touch. Go to the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Let's get on a call. Let's talk about what you've got going on, because I've seen much of this, and it seems to be a theme lately with many of the folks that I'm hearing from and working with. And so, and I have one particular gentleman in our group calls that is alienated from 4 or 5 of 6 of his children. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking and sad to hear the stories of what life was like before and how quickly his ex was able to alienate his children within a period of a year or years. And then their relationships are all but done for the time being. Hopefully there is going to be a reconciliation in adult life when they figure out that all of this stuff has been lies. But again, in the meantime, it's difficult and painful being alienated from your children until such time that they're able to figure out and unravel their lives to such a point that they can see what has happened and then make a reconciliation. So we don't want you to get there. We want to get in front of this right away as soon as possible. So get in touch, get the help you need. And again, I hope that this podcast and this episode has helped you out. If it has, please give us a star rating. Please share this on social media. Please leave some comments on whatever podcast platform that you were listening to, or if you're watching on YouTube, helps us immensely, helps us continue to grow the community and help more people. Thank you so much for listening. I sincerely appreciate it. Have a great week and God bless. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.